This is Coda Radio, episode 217 for August 8th, 2016. Everyone, and welcome to Coda Radio, Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly talk show, taking a pragmatic look at the art and business of software development and related technologies. This episode is brought to you by our two fine sponsors, DigitalOcean and Linux Academy. I'll tell you more about those great sponsors as this here show goes on. Sitting here in Seattle, Washington, why yes, I am Chris, and joining us from the East Coast every single week is Mr. Michael Dominic. Hello, Mike!
You will be assimilated.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. I in my ever ongoing strive for perfection, I will once join the Borg. Mr. Dominic, we have a very fun show planned today. Not only am I excited about joining the collective, but there's a topic that you and I have been rattling around and kicking around and sort of dancing around, prancing, as some may say, around. And today is the day we finally tackle that topic straight on. And that, of course, is the coming AI and bot revolution. And to help us do that, we have brought on someone who knows a little on the topic. It's Mr. Ryan Sipes from Mycroft. Hello, Ryan.
It's alive.
Excellent.
It's coming. Well, guys, I'm really looking forward to today's show. So we have a bunch to get into. We're going to learn a lot more about Mycroft. We're going to hear Ryan's thoughts on what is obviously a huge trend that's developing, something Mike's also been getting really excited about. So we have a ton to get into today. And I don't really have much to say right off the top other than we do have a new duty here on the Coda Radio program, and that is the Coding Challenge. So not only do we have a coding challenge to follow up on from last week, but with Ryan here, we're going to do a special themed coding challenge this week. There's a whole lot of challenge in our face, Mr. Dominic. So should we start with episode 216's challenge, which I believe had a Jar Jar Binks bend to it?
Yes. And first, I should apologize. Last week, I failed to post the coding challenge in the subreddit, and people missed it and were upset. Sorry. But the winner, the eagle-eyed Jar Jar aficionado, and really, that's the thing. There are like Jar Jar aficionados.
I don't believe you. I don't
believe you.
He is an excellent. If I could program a Mycroft-powered bot, I'm gonna tell you right now, it would be Jar Jar Binks.
No.
Yes, and he would hunt you down with his tongue.
Okay, all right. Somehow I believe you.
We have this wonderful game created by Rhino You know what? I can't read that.
Rhino Sapien. I'm going to say Rhino Sapien.
Rhino Sapien?
Yeah.
All right. It is one of those old-fashioned object-dropping click games. Very simple, but the goal of the game is to use Jar Jar's tongue, his massive tongue, to eat all the apples and not eat the bombs. I mean,
it's good.
It's fantastic.
That is really good. That's the winner. That's our winner right there. That's our winner.
Hey, HTML5, open source. I love it.
Hey, congratulations. A special congratulations goes to Rhino Craptor, I think is actually the title. Rhino Rhinoceraptor. I don't know.
Rhinoceraptor. I see what he did there.
Jar Jar's Feast. Very nice. Jar Jar's Feast. That is a pretty great one. That's, you know what? I really got to give hats off to that. That's pretty great. Now, we kind of did a little brainstorming before the show and thought, all right, so for next week's coding challenge, something maybe that would be Mycroft themed might be appropriate. Now, we kicked around different options, and Ryan, I might jump over to you, and you told me that something that almost sounds like right out of an MMO, but Mycroft has a skills system that might just be ripe for the picking for our next coding challenge.
Sure, I think it'd be really interesting if we just had a Mycroft skill off.
A skill off. All right. What is a skill?
A skill is like an application, so it adds to Mycroft's library of things that he can do.
Abilities.
And so right now we have like a Cody skills that somebody can use to control their Cody box.
Ooh.
We have a Phillips Hue skill, and we're in the process of pulling these all into a central repository where people can grab them and pull them down. But if you go to docs.mycroft.ai, so docs, like Google Docs or whatever, .mycroft.ai, you'll see documentation on how to get started with Mycroft, and maybe we can come up with some skills. I don't know how you'll test that, Michael, other than people point you at their repos, or we could just have them maybe record a video or something, or audio of them talking to Mycroft and have that happen. But also, aside from that, maybe to broaden it for people who may have different talents, we could broaden it to just be bots in general, and have just a bot challenge to see if we can find the most interesting bot. You talked about making it maybe Mycroft or Sherlock Holmes esque. So I'll let you define that a little more, Michael, because I don't really know. You're really good at these challenges right off top, to what seemingly right off the top of your head. So whatever weird twist you want to put on it.
It's almost like I make them up as I go along.
Exactly.
No, I think that's fair. I mean, it would be great if you could do something powered by Mycroft, but I'm sure there's some limitations. So let me ask you this, Ryan. How limited would they be if they don't have a Mycroft device or a Mycroft-capable system? I mean, maybe we should take a step back and say, what are the requirements to actually utilize Mycroft?
A Linux box and a speaker and a mic.
Yeah, so it's just going to be Mycroft powered then. That's easy enough.
Yeah, because you could run, if you have Ubuntu set up, there's scripts to build the packages and stuff you need. Plus, on the dock side, all the packages you need to install, such as Python or anything like that, are listed with commands to install it all just with apt-get from the website, and then including adding the repo and whatnot. So it looks pretty straightforward.
And I get $10 for every System 76 we sell.
So yeah, right. Yeah, of course. Hey, can I get that deal?
No, sorry.
So also, you can use Docker, I would assume. Ryan, are there any images to get this going right away with Docker yet?
Yeah, there should be a Docker image. They're constantly adding to it, so I'm not sure. It's been a while since I've tried it, but the last time I tried it, it worked just fine.
I floated an idea that's totally self-serving as an example skill that would be great for Mycroft to have, and that would be something like Mycroft, play jblive.fm, and have it play the live stream. So you could listen to Coda Radio through... now, could you set something... You could set something up like that using the mic...
Jupiter Broadcasting skill.
Yeah.
Someone already made that.
Oh, really? Oh, well, hey.
I'll have to track it down and send it to you. Maybe we can get it in the show notes.
So you can yes, yeah, absolutely. So you could listen to, is the idea you can listen to shows via...
you just say play Coda Radio and it'll play the most recent Coda Radio.
That's awesome. Fantastic.
That really is. Now, this is why Mycroft needs to be the dominant AI assistant. So there you go. So something with a strong bot connection, ideally really Mycroft related. Michael, do you want to draw that line? And if people need a little extra time, we could always go for 2 weeks with this particular challenge and give people a little extra time if we feel like it's necessary.
Yeah, I think it would be good to give them a little extra time. It's kind of new. My only concern with Mycroft only is that it doesn't require the mic, Ryan. Could they do text entry?
They can do text entry. There's a CLI interface.
Well, there you go.
There you go.
Type in your query too, but it looks like somebody posted the Mycroft Jupiter Broadcasting skill.
Oh, I'll grab that for the show notes. So that could be an example people could look at. Oh, there we go. So there's even some starting example code for you, chat room and audience at home.
There's we have a Slack channel and forums for people who want to ask questions and get involved. So yeah,
okay.
It would be a fun thing to, I think, have the community see what we come up with.
Yeah,
no, I think it's good. I think we give them 2 weeks because it is a little bigger challenge, and so in 2 weeks from now we'll see what kind of Mycroft bots show up.
Very cool, boy. I can't wait to play around with that. So I know there's got to be some people listening who don't have any idea what Mycroft is and why we keep talking about it. So I'll close out the coding challenge. There we go. The links for the Jupiter Broadcasting skill are in the show notes. That closes out the Coda Radio Challenge. Before we get into what the shenanigans Mycroft is and why we keep talking about it, which is probably maybe a good place to start before we start talking about the whole technology stack and all of that. I'm going to mention Linux Academy right here at the top. linuxacademy.com/coders is your destination to support this show. The technology around Linux and the core essentials itself really go in depth with AWS, OpenStack, Azure, Linux, the entire technology stack, things built around it like Nginx, Apache, and of course the database backends, the different languages you can use. What's really unique about Linux Academy, though, is the combination and integration of downloadable comprehensive study guides, labs that spin up when you need them with SSH access, being able to choose your own distribution to modify the labs and the study guides, instructor mentoring available when you need it, forkable study cards, availability planners that match your schedule, and a great community. On top of all of those things, a great price that's extreme. When you look at the cost of education, Linux Academy really stacks up competitively. linuxacademy.com/coders is where you want to go to support the show, to take advantage of all the features, the content they're constantly improving and adding on. If you need to focus on certs, they've got great courseware for that. If you want to really get hands-on experience so you walk away knowing how to work with something in a production environment, they've got labs and exercises that are perfect for that. Study tools to help when you need to. iOS and Android apps if you want to relax and study on the couch. I think it's a pretty great service, and I'm really glad they're here to support the Coder Radio program, because you can also get started developing by using some of the courseware at Linux Academy. linuxacademy.com/coders. Go check them out, sign up, and support this show, and train your mind. Expand it. You might not have artificial intelligence, but as long as we got those bio meat sacks up there, you can still program them this way. linuxacademy.com/coders. Thanks to Linux Academy for sponsoring the Coder Radio program. So, Ryan, do you want, I could play the Mycroft video that kind of sets up Mycroft, or do you have a quick pitch? Yeah, I don't mind either way, actually. Whatever works for you.
So Mycroft is an open source version of Echo or Cortana or Siri. The idea is this personal assistant that you can converse with and have it return a natural language response. And you can do this via voice, or like I said earlier, via a command line prompt, or other people are coming up with different front ends for interacting with it. So you could imagine like just having in a dashboard, like the GNOME dashboard, for instance, like somebody just typing in a question and having it pop up, there in the dashboard. So the idea is kind of to ensure that anyone who wants to have access to this technology doesn't have to be tied to some big proprietary, company like Google or Amazon or Microsoft.
It's interesting because the open source aspect of it seems to be a key competitive differentiator for Mycroft, because that's one thing that you always have going for it over the other solutions is the extensibility of this. How difficult has that been, though? Has that been limiting in the sense of integrating core technologies like perhaps speech synthesis? Like, you can't just go license Nuance or something like that because of the budget and licensing restrictions. So is that been limiting at all for you guys?
It's been something entirely different, I think, than what the typical. So we've been kind of, because we sold units through Kickstarter, we've had to act as a company as well, not just a software project. And so we've gone, I think, a different way than a lot of similar startups, because we have this connection to the open source community, and we've had to make sure that we respect that ethos. And so there are limiting factors there, but at the end of the day, we've also got way more attention and way more code contribution because we're open source. Otherwise we would just have the resources that we have in-house to accomplish this task. And I think, given the task we're trying to accomplish, that it would be impossible to do that without this approach that we've taken. Mm-hmm. And so I think that it's been a net good. I think that a lot of the opportunities we've gotten have been because of us taking that approach and respecting that community. And so I wouldn't say that there's been anything too limiting about it. We are talking about ways to allow people who are submitting third-party skills to be able to do so and not necessarily have their skill be under the same licensing. But that's about the most limiting things have gotten, and I think that there are ways to do that still respect the open source nature of the project.
So what is the software license you guys are using?
So the Mycroft core is licensed under the GPL version 3, and then the intent parser is licensed under the LGPL. And so we have looked at possibly including an exception in the GPL on the Mycroft core in order to allow people to submit skills that aren't under the same license. And obviously that's a conversation that we're going to have with the community. It's something that we're likely going to talk about this week on our blog and on our community website, and see what their thoughts and feedback are. Really, I keep getting distracted by the chat because I think that people have a misunderstanding of Mycroft even still. That I saw in the chat that there are people who are upset that the speech to text part of it is a third party, that you can plug in whatever you want. Like if you just install Mycroft today and you use it without making any settings changes, like you're using Google speech to text in order to do the speech to text part. And we have an initiative called Open Speech to Text, or OpenSTT, where we're trying to replace that piece. But that's, if you talked about limitations and problems that we're coming up against, that's the type of thing that we come up against, is that in some cases the open source solution isn't quite there yet. The open source, like in this case, we need an open model, or a speech to text model that's trained to understand the speech and translate it to text. And unfortunately, there aren't many good models that are open under like a Creative Commons license at that point yet. So we're leading an effort to do that. But the thing is that I still think the tools we're providing are really powerful and help move the community forward and prevent them from having to.
Is the speech detection system pluggable? Will it always be pluggable? Could I in the future plug in, like, if I decided I wanted to go, if Nuance made it possible for a consumer like me to buy an API key and plug it into Mycroft, I could use Nuance because I thought it was better than Google. Is that something that's down the road? I mean, that almost seems like a benefit in some ways, that I have a choice, because myself, I don't find Google's speech recognition to be nearly as accurate as Nuance's, and I would love to be able to have different options. Yeah,
you can use whatever backend you want right now. There's a setting in the config file to change out to whatever you want. We right now, if you download the software, there are some defaults set so that you don't have to spend the next hour, setting.
Is that a thing that niggles at you, though, that you have a consumer base that has a certain expectation that the entire stack be licensed in a certain way, and at the same time you're like, yes, but we can't actually accomplish what it is you want us to do with that stack? And how do you avoid building up resentment for the fact that they're just not getting it? They're just, because really, trust me, as the host of the Linux Action Show, this is something I have faced for a decade now, and it's like something that's really hard to communicate, because you have a bunch of armchair technologists who think they're experts on everything, but have never actually tried any of this stuff in production or built something like this before. And so they have opinions on how it should be and how it should work, and you have the realities of delivering on what you've promised and what the expectations of end users and what the competitors are setting. So is this a conflict that has been challenging for you? Because one of the things we talk about sometimes on this show, to be totally honest with you, Ryan, as you probably know, is once you're an open source project, a lot of this shit's out in the open, and now it's stuff that people have to look at, that if you were a closed off private application that was doing some VC funding and then launched something like a hardware device like this onto the market, totally ready to go, productized, this is not a problem you would have to be dealing with right now.
Yeah, it is a frustrating thing. I think that I think that sometimes we get a lot more criticism than some of our proprietary competitors from people
Yeah.
who want they say that they want an open source solution, but I've had somebody in the Linux Reddit say that they were going to use an echo because our speech to text used we were using Google speech to text by default, and that was just like, what? What are you talking about? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I just looked at your Indiegogo page and I just ordered one. So there you go. You made a sale.
Attaboy. Yeah, it's a pretty compelling idea.
It doesn't look like you guys are really being hampered by this licensing issue, though. I mean, you're well above your target, or your stated target at least.
And you do have an active open source project to develop a speech to text system.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it hasn't hindered us. It's just when it is frustrating. I can't really care for the conversation to go this way, but you know, when I get on this stuff and I see people.
It is
kind of
the reason why I bring it up, Ryan, is because I think the solution is for the open source community consumer to behave better. I think you're not doing anything wrong. You're trying to build something, and this is the process of sometimes how you build something. And the other thing is what really gets me is the technology is not set in stone. Things change, and there is time for things to improve. So you get something working, you get it established, and either you go back and you improve on these things. And I put it out there as just because there are people in our audience that maybe could reflect on it, because I feel like it's something that is maybe undue pressure on open source projects.
Ryan, I'm just going to bail you guys out. This doesn't matter. If you care about this, you're stupid. So
I don't know if I agree, because I think it drags down some projects.
Dumb. If you want something built for free in the open, and then you're going to
yes, I agree on this.
Yeah, I mean, this is not a productive conversation.
All right, so let's. I don't know. I guess I will.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I'll just say this. I'll circle back to it in a different venue, because I feel like there is something here that puts undue pressure on some projects. But I actually don't think in the grand scope of things it really does matter as much as I agree with you.
It doesn't matter at all. So Ryan, tell me, what's the stack here? Because I'm looking at this page. I see Tux. He's looking beautiful. is that a Raspberry Pi logo?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The unit itself has a Raspberry. The unit, the hardware that we are selling on through Indiegogo, has a Raspberry Pi that powers it, and then we have a soundboard that we've created.
Okay.
And a front plate that make up the rest of the device, and then it's all in one big.
And it could run on anything, really, right? It doesn't. I mean, the Raspberry Pi is sort of the perfect product for something like this, but I could put it on my laptop as well, the whole stack.
Yeah. I would say that probably 50% of the time I use it is on my laptop, and there are some things it does on the laptop that are unique, like launches applications, can search YouTube and pull up a website or pull up a video on the browser and things like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, we encourage people to use it on their Linux machines as well, on their Linux desktops, and there are some desktop apps that people are creating. There's an Electron app, and maybe the chat room will help me out as I talk about these. There's an Electron front end. There's a GNOME extension front end. There's a Plasma front end.
I love it.
I'm sure there are others, but
a Windows 10 front. No.
Yeah.
I somehow doubt that. Electron. Okay, so I mean, this is going to be pretty thick for us here, but walk me through software-wise. What is inside of this? I mean, from the very basic 20,000 feet in the air, like, our one question we often get when we talk about a project is, what language is it? What platform is it? What do I need to develop with it?
Yeah. So a lot of the components are written in Python. There are a few different components that make up what you ultimately would come to consider Mycroft.
Okay.
And so they break down into 3 different components that are pretty easy to understand. There's the adapt intent parser, which is what looks up. You've got the page pulled up there. There's the adapt intent parser, which looks at what you're saying, so a phrase, and breaks it down into what it is that you're trying to accomplish and what you're trying to interact with. So the easiest way I've found to explain this is if Valley Girl says, hey Mycroft, could you like totally like turn off the lights in the living room? It's not going to really worry about trying to understand every single part of that sentence. What it's going to do is it's going to break it down to look at specific keywords. So turn off the light, living room,
Right.
and take an action.
You have an example on the site that says the user might say turn on Pandora or play Pandora or put on that certain Pandora station, and the adapt engine takes the input that's natural language and feeds the destination application basically a JSON data structure.
Yeah, and you've got it pulled up there, and you can really see exactly how it hands it off to the next piece, which would be the skill in Mycroft core that would take what it gets from the JSON and decide then what action to take, what needs to happen.
So is the architecture that the input, so in this case the Valley Girl's very strange way to turn off a light, does that goes into the adapt parser, which then parses it, creates this JSON hash, sends it to the Mycroft core, you said?
Yes.
Is it then Mycroft core? What's going on in core? Are there a bunch of like integrations? Like, is that where the integration to, in your case, Pandora, or I'm assuming I could integrate whatever I want, right?
Correct. Yeah, that's where these apps are, these skills. And what it takes that JSON and it looks for the first skill that says, hey, this is me. And we have a vocabulary associated with each skill. So
it's very similar to like a Siri type API. The applications can say, I handle this sort of content and my name is this. And then the core system just hands it off. Is that
correct?
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then from there, that custom written application or skill takes it and does something with it, whether it's interacting with an API or running a specific command on a Linux box or whatever. That's where it goes from there. And then finally, there's the text-to-speech layer, which doesn't always have to happen, but in the case of the unit, you want some kind of feedback, like where it says something like, "Hey, I putting on Pandora," and then plays Pandora,
sure.
Or and that's called mimic.
Okay, so wait, so mimic is that's what allows me to use a command line type interface to a Mycroft to issue a text command to it?
No, mimic is just the text to speech. So
it's just okay, gotcha.
The speech. Before you ever get started, of course, is the speech to text layer. But of course, you have the ability to enter it in via just text. But the speech to text is right now, we use third-party speech to text services, but we have open speech to text, which is a big project.
Yes.
Because it requires machine learning and lots of data in order to accomplish it.
Yeah, I would imagine.
Yeah, it makes tons of sense to leverage the existing stuff. So just another curiosity. So I did just order that cute little box. And as you know, I'm totally selfish on the air. Does the Mycroft system, for the lack of a better term, understand state? And what I mean by that is, let's say I have my Raytel in front of me. Let's say I were to install Mycroft on the Raytel. The box comes in, I put it in the other room, and I tell the box, or rather I tell the Raytel, go ahead and play, Katy Perry, which is a command I would totally issue.
Mm-hmm.
I go into the other room. Can I tell it? Will it know where you're at in the right? Does it understand state between the two units?
Or like would the same question apply? Like if you set up a nickname on one, is it shared in the other? Or is it, yeah.
Are they networked?
So they are networked. We've been working really hard on the back end to tie those things together. This is something that people don't like to hear, but that's a long-term project, and it takes a lot of
problem
work. Yes, the idea is to have the ability for not only for these machines to communicate with one another, these instances of Mycroft, but to be able to communicate with each other intelligently, so that if you have two Mycrofts that can both hear you,
right,
at the same time,
which one fires off?
Yeah, hopefully, we'll be able to accomplish the ability for them.
Well, Google and Apple haven't gotten that working yet, so.
Yeah,
Amazon did though, right? I mean, so this is interesting because it sounds like, and believe me, I will put you to the test once I get it. that this is actually going to be significantly better than, let's say, Siri, right? In terms of knowing what I'm talking about.
It just depends. A lot of it's based on, the skill availability. Like if the more community engagement we get, the more people writing skills that handle specific,
I see. Okay.
Sure.
things, that's going to make it a lot better.
So hence the coding challenge. What's the intelligence part of all this? Where does intelligence come in? Because so far what it sounds like is a series of structured commands, and I issue a command that obviously matches up with Pandora because of the words that I used, and so then it launches and connects to Pandora. But that's not what's artificial and intelligent about this.
Yeah, so there are machine learning projects that we've begun to undertake, and if you jump into our chat, you can begin to engage in those conversations. We're working on some early stages of trying to use machine learning in order to train a model to understand, intent better than just us writing what we think is every single possible, vocabulary you might use for a skill.
Yeah.
So this is something where, from the beginning, we talked about machine learning and trying to get to a place where people are able to actually use a lot of the tools that are available now to create what we would say, I guess, intelligent skills for Mycroft and intelligent. There are so many components to this, and it's such a big project that that without doing it this way, we're going to fall behind anyway. So I think the open source community needs projects like this right now that are kind of exposing them to some of these tools. And there's a simple approach that we have right now, but we have some projects underway in our community that they're going to be adding layers on top of this that expose them to more what you would consider machine learning or artificial intelligence.
Yeah, because that to me seems to be a massive. It almost feels like the difference between a small country and a large country. Like there's Google. When you look at Google's machine learning capability and the amount of input and data they have to parse from everything from speech to how people input and interact. How can an open source project ever hope to compete with something at that scale? Because it's literally what they do.
Yeah, it's the only way is to have a big, vibrant community that's contributing.
Big might be an understatement.
Yeah, fortunately there are a lot of really intelligent people who come into our community who are using. Who are not able to apply their ideas to this type of project every day.
I've been surprised too. Like some of the people you've worked with too. It appears there is already a lot of effort and energy sort of going in this direction. So it's not like Mycroft just came along and all of a sudden said, "Hey, this is something we could use. This is something that's all you guys are taking part in something that's sort of a trend that's growing, right?" Is that true?
Correct.
Good. I hope so.
This is just there were tools like Mimic is a fork of Flight, which was a tool that was being made at Carnegie Mellon University, but it just wasn't getting that many contributions, and so we decided, and they weren't really necessarily engaging, actively with the community. So we went ahead and forked that and tried to build a community around it. We built a fairly active community around that project, and we've hoped to take these tools, expose them, some of the tools we rely on, expose them, and get more people interested in contributing to this area. And so the whether or not it's us, we don't necessarily need to rule the world or anything as far as being the most popular personal assistant, but we would like to promote the technology that enables people to use this in their project have voice interaction, have this type of
I imagine like the intent parser and all of that could. In fact, Mr. Dominic, would this be a good time to transition to discussing bots and AI, or do you have any more questions regarding the core technology?
So, yeah, maybe it would be more in the next segment, but how does one get started developing one of these skills or these apps for Mycroft?
So I would recommend to read through the docs and then
RTFM.
And then on the contributing page, like jump in and just engage with our awesome community and ask, like, hey, this is what I'm trying to do. Do you guys have some feedback to get started? And usually, a few people in the community will say like, yes, let me help you get started and let me help you, learn how to use the system. You can read through the docs 100 times for any project, but until you actually start engaging in the community, it's pretty hard to get involved and to hit the ground running.
So, just to clarify real quick, you said contribute. So are these skills not self-contained, meaning does these, like on a very basic dumb level, right? Does the source code actually go into like some sort of Mycroft shared repo, or how does that all work?
So that's something that we're actually discussing right now. Like there are some core skills that live in Mycroft core, and then there are quite a lot of skills that have been written that don't live in Mycroft core, and we're starting to create a repository so that people will be able to easily download and install those third-party skills.
So everybody can get the JB Live streaming skill.
Yeah, and and we found it inappropriate to, of course, load. Yeah, I'm sorry, Chris, but we decided not to force everybody to install the JB Live.
Not everybody's perfect, Ryan. It's okay.
Yeah, but hopefully in the very near future we'll have an easy way for people to just one-click install these third-party skills and then have them running.
So this is interesting though, and it just kind of to segue into the next topic. I've been doing a little bit of work with the I don't know how familiar you are with this, Ryan, the Microsoft bot framework, the Node.js version of it.
Right.
Because I just won't install a Windows box. What's weird, or not weird, but what's different there is your bot, in quotes, is actually a web service, right? Your bot lives, ideally your bot lives on a server. In my case, it's a droplet. That doesn't sound like it's the case with Mycroft, unless I'm totally missing something.
No, you could run it on a droplet if you really wanted to, but right now we've tried to keep as much
on the client.
Yeah, on the client side.
No, that makes more. To be honest, that makes more sense because one thing I'm always concerned about is obviously latency, right? And having to hit a web service to do anything is kind of.
But once down the road, if Mycroft could be networked up, there could be some sort of appeal to having like a Mycroft mind in the cloud. I could really like that if everything shared. If I had local clients too and it shared state.
We've talked about creating some tools to allow people to load the Mycroft core on like a DigitalOcean droplet and then have little really, really dumb clients that just essentially pass on, when they get the code, when they get the keyword back to the brain, and
wow.
Just act as kind of dumb.
And then that's really something.
So let me ask you, is that more of the client side focus, is that something that you feel is important?
Well,
go ahead.
The thing is, when we first started, people have to remember that this was just a project that we wanted to pursue. We just wanted to see what we could make and what we could create and what we could give to the world, kind of. Because what we said from the beginning is, regardless of whether or not our Kickstarter raises any money, regardless of what happens, like, we just want to leave a really cool project to the world, and that's kind of come to fruition, regardless of what happens in the future. But since the beginning, it's kind of grown, and at the beginning we just had this idea of this client that you could communicate with, and over time the community has exposed us to more ideas around what else we could do, and so we've been kind of playing around in our mind, like, is it always best to have all this client side, or are there situations where you want an API and this to live, on a droplet or on VPS somewhere?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So let me ask, kind of philosophically, where do you fall in that equation? Because it's something I'm very much struggling with.
I think it depends on the use case. I think I'd love to see the smallest possible device able to interact with you via voice, and I don't think that there's always a compute tower there.
I can give you a use case. For us, the use case for server side would be JBot right now runs on a droplet and participates in our chat room via a droplet. And obviously, if we could make JBot even savvier with some sort of Mycroft wizardry on the back end, even if it was improving intent understanding or better calculating, in real time, going out there and connecting to other services and pulling that information in and displaying in the chat room, I absolutely would run that on a droplet.
Yeah. I think the great thing is that we've made it so modular and it uses like message buses between the different services that run in order to communicate. And so there's multiple different hybrid setups I could see, as well as like almost completely off device, and then
right, because I have to have a local client here to issue the start show command to Mycroft to send it up to the droplet.
Right, and so and we did that purposely, and I think that people who spend some time with the project and look at how it's set up will realize that it's kind of a choose your own adventure type of thing, where if you really want everything to run locally, you could figure that out. If you want everything to run remotely, you could figure that out as well. And right now we're pursuing a more local approach.
Okay.
But I do see specific use cases where you might want things to run offsite.
And so it just seems like, again, this is part of a roadmap of an ongoing project that you accomplish things and you build on top, and you build on top of that. Why don't we hit the pause button right here and mention DigitalOcean, since we've been name dropping them for a bit, so this seems like the best spot to mention DigitalOcean.com and use the promo code CODERDIGITAL. Apply that to your account and you'll get a $10 credit. Now, what's great about that is it's $5 for the basic rig, but for example, like here at JB, we just spin up the rigs when we need them. The Satcom 2 is a perfect example. To stream to YouTube, we just turn that server on when we need to stream to YouTube, and when the live show's over, I turn it off. So I only pay by the hour. 3 cents an hour is a great price when you use the promo code CODERDIGITAL, because that'll give you a $10 credit to, heck, go deploy Mycroft on a DigitalOcean droplet and tell us all about it. They have a great UI. They have data centers all over the world, and for their unbelievable price of $5 a month, you can get 512 megabytes of RAM, a 20 gigabyte SSD, 1 CPU, and a terabyte of transfer. Plus, their API makes it possible to interact with things like bots, just like our own JBot does, or tons of great open source code that is already written. They have data centers in New York, San Francisco, Singapore, Amsterdam, London, Toronto, Germany, and even India. And they've got great documentation to help you take it up to the next level. Great stuff. I mean, everything from Let's Encrypt, integrating that with your web server of choice, to deploying the new block storage on DigitalOcean, PostgreSQL, Docker Compose, all really useful. DigitalOcean.com. Just use our promo code CODERDIGITAL. It's one word. You apply it to your account, and you get a $10 credit at DigitalOcean.com. So you guys want to talk about bots? Because I do. I'm ready. I'm amped up.
My body's ready.
My body's ready for bots. So I guess I wanted to start by there's been some gimmicks in the computer industry for a while, and sometimes some of the artificial, like, started with Clippy. That's the famous one. There's been a lot of flops and gimmicks.
I'm sorry.
You like Clippy?
Did you just denigrate Clippy?
I'm sorry. You're right. We won't. How about instead of Clippy, let's talk about Sherlock.
Oh.
I think, but bots actually feel like there's something here. I'll tell you, I recently just had my first tech support experience with a Telegram bot. I had to talk to Telegram tech support, and once I requested support, it initiated a bot chat with me. And it was actually a very pleasant experience. And they even made it possible, so instead of me having to type back my response, they gave me a menu of options to choose. They were all natural language too. And we use JBot. You know, I very much sort of naturally tell JBot to start streaming in a way that's not like a traditional command. And IRC bots have been around for a long time, but it feels like this is something that is actually grabbing hold. And if you look outside the U.S., bot interaction with chat programs is a bonanza. So it does seem like if you can make these things more useful, a little smarter, and maybe in some cases under your control, there really could be something here. Am I wrong, guys? What do you think? There's some smoke.
You first, Ryan.
Ryan, I think's muted.
Yeah.
There you go.
So just to back up, I just wanted to ask, I see you're making a podcast. Would you like help with that? But
it was good intentions, damn it.
Yeah, I think it's just a natural way things had to progress, just thinking about like what we've been capable of in the history of like artificial intelligence, quote unquote. And you know, we're finally at a point where we can actually, whether it's wrong or not, like use deep learning and machine learning and kind of all this data that these, especially big companies, are getting back in order to create really intelligent, really great experiences. And the way that they expose them are through these interactions that look a lot like how people interact with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And so, how did you say you had a good experience with the Telegram bot?
I actually did. Yeah, I thought it went pretty smooth. It was very fast and efficient, and the problem was resolved. So I walked away going, that actually was a pretty pleasing experience.
I also have had I've tried a couple bots on Facebook Messenger of all things, mostly because I was reading all these articles about them. And I got to say, I'm not a big fan of Facebook Messenger, but that seems to be where a lot of them are at. So I was like, all right, I'll try a couple. I had a really positive experience as well. I was actually really, really impressed. One of them was a finance bot who I'm trying to think of the name of the bot. But they have a partnership with US Bank, and I have a US Bank account, and so you push a couple buttons and then you can talk about your account with this bot, and it says like, oh hey, I noticed you have a subscription to this. Are you still using that subscription? I guess no, not really. And then it's like, well, would you like me to cancel that for you?
Oh, even better. That's useful for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, actually, yes, I would, because that's why sometimes I have subscriptions longer than I want them.
Yeah, they make it hard to cancel.
Yeah, and so then like it took a little bit, but like 5 minutes later it was like, okay, it's canceled, and I was like, that was really awesome. Like that was the first time, that I was.
That's actually like a real world impact too, because that's going to save you a little bit of money.
Yeah, and that's what the whole point of that bot was, is just to look through your stuff and be like, I noticed that you go and you spend this much money.
Jeez, that's creepy. Facebook having that though.
It is creepy, but at the same time, it's there is a value to it. What would it take for you to hire a professional to go through your finances like that?
$400.
Yeah, exactly. And what would you have to pay somebody to go and cancel, subscription?
An hourly rate, yeah. Yeah, that's true.
So I was super happy by that use case, because I was like, these are things that, first off, I'm busy. Like, I'm perpetually busy all the time. And people say that, but like when I have any downtime at all, like it doesn't last long. Like if there's a blank spot on my calendar, it's gonna get filled. Right. And so to be able to just text this bot, like I would text my wife or anybody else, like real quick, I can do it in between. Like when
right, because you're doing it from the Messenger app, so you don't have to, you're not locked to your desk while this is happening. You can walk around and get notification when it's done.
Yeah, exactly. That was so powerful, and it really is a personal assistant, and I don't know about like one overarching bot to rule them all. Like there are people who are trying stuff like that, like Vive, if you've seen that, from the same guys who started Siri, and things like that. But these bots, one that knows one domain really well, and then another one knows another one. That kind of jives with me anyway, because I usually don't talk to I wouldn't talk to my accountant about
some
lawn
monthly
care, like,
magazine subscription or something. Yeah.
yeah, and so that was really powerful, and that was a great experience, and that really opened my eyes to other than just the thing I'm used to, which is this verbal communication with essentially like a robot. This was a totally different type of communication, and and a totally different domain. The other one that I saw is a bot that challenges parking tickets. Have you guys seen that?
No.
Oh, I did see that. I thought that got shut down. Is it still?
I'm not sure if it's still around, but it actually got it overturned like 25,000 parking tickets last time.
And it was exposed through an app, right? Is that right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. There was a mobile app.
Yes. Okay, I did hear about this.
And that's another thing where no one would take the time. Not many people would take the time to go through that process. But when you just have to answer a few questions, like to have it challenge your parking ticket, like if it takes me 2 minutes to go through and answer a couple questions, and I don't have to go through for me, it's like you get the ticket, you have to.
Oh yeah.
In case you have to mail it in, like all that's just time wasting.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah. It's funny though, because it's really the internet of APIs, isn't it? That's really how this is all made possible, is because there has to be at some point there's some piece of software is talking to another piece of software, or somebody's getting a notification to make a phone call and then I guess type an answer back into a piece of software. But it really seems like this truly relies on an internet of APIs, not an internet of things.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think what we'll see. And I didn't believe this till I interacted with the bot that canceled a couple of subscriptions for me. Is I think we will see a lot of people who are a lot of app developers who just start making bots.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah, I agree.
That accomplish these tasks, and I think that the real possibility, there's a real enormous monetary somebody's going to make a lot of money by making that process for app developers really, really easy.
You're speaking my language.
And so I think that making it just stupid simple for someone to create an interaction with an API that looks like natural language, looks like a conversation, is like the future of how you get a lot of stuff done.
Yeah, so this is interesting, right? Like Microsoft is trying to get you. They have, I don't know if you've looked at their tooling, like the bot connector tool, which there's a pseudo wizard style thing to connect with certain services, mainly theirs and Slack. Facebook and Messenger has the same thing. But don't you think there's a place for and maybe Mycroft is the solution, some sort of, let's think about like a butler bot, right? Where you have one bot that you mainly interface with that actually delegates tasks to,
like a bot proxy.
Right, because your point about apps makes a lot of sense to me, but I would take it further. App downloads are going down precipitously now, right? People aren't downloading apps like they used to because you don't need 70 apps on your phone. I can't imagine that in 5 years you're going to want a specific bot for your banking. Maybe for your banking is an exception because of security, but are you going to want 20 bots, or are you going to want to be able to talk to, say, Mycroft and have Mycroft just go talk to the Spotify skill or bot? See, and the other question I'd be, where is the line between a bot and, say, something like a script or a Mycroft skill?
I think the line is really blurry. I think what we like to think about as technologists is the technology behind an experience, but I think most people just care about the experience. And so if the experience is just is a good experience, but it is just a series of, haphazardly put together scripts. Like, what does it matter if the person is accomplishing what they want to accomplish and it's all going great? So, but I do think that there are going to be tools that raise to the top that just make this really, really easy and a good experience. And maybe that's Microsoft's bot, connector, or maybe
it surely is not. I can tell you that. That was unnecessary.
Facebook would like to be in that position, or Google would too, though.
Well, but they all suffer from the. I mean, this is why I think Mycroft is actually, and I'm not just being nice to you because you're here. Facebook really wants you to be married to Facebook, right? Microsoft is confusing in how they do things, but I think part of that is it is a beta. But like Mycroft, to me, that give you guys another year or two, that looks like it's open. If I could get around having to GPL my source code, although I probably don't if I don't actually contribute it, that seems like something, right? Why couldn't Mycroft be that bot hub, so to speak?
Ultimately, I don't think that there's a reason why Mycroft or something like Mycroft shouldn't be.
Right.
I think what I worry about is all these bots that are beginning to exist on Facebook Messenger. It's not beyond me that I had a conversation about my bank account on Facebook Messenger with a bot.
Right, in Facebook. Right.
Yeah, and my wife who has, I guess, I finally rubbed off on her on my, privacy conscious stuff, because she was like, "Are you really sure that you like the idea of having a conversation over Facebook, Messenger about your bank account?" And I was like, "Well, I'm just playing with the technology, but
it's research, honey."
Yeah, but a lot of people won't even think about that and think about all the data that Facebook is gobbling up as a result of their interactions with these bots, because you're like, "Oh, they got to deal with my bank, like that's safe, like." And then but then there's a third party that's kind of just sitting there just scooping up all that data.
That's a really tricky one, though, because sometimes some of those companies, like banks, aren't going to be really willing to work with anybody but a company that has the scale of a Facebook or a Facebook partner.
Right, exactly. So there's so I don't know what the answer is. I think I like the experience I've had with some of these bots. So I would say that from a just not thinking about my RMS proclivities sometimes.
I see your DuckDuckGo shirt there, yeah.
Yeah, not thinking about my RMS proclivities, I would say that I'm really excited about the technology.
It seems like these bots are fundamentally taking this. It's really what technology is best for, and that's taking some of the tedium away from humans and freeing us up to focus on other endeavors. And that's really what these bots do to some capacity, and they do it in a way that is approachable, I should say, from just about damn near anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I wrote a post called Brutal Bots. I definitely where it talked about possible employment and economic impact of these bots on like low-level clerical workers.
Yes.
I think you're totally right, Ryan, that these bots are going to be a big deal. I just, I'm more happy trusting Mycroft than Facebook, if only because, you guys are limited in what you can do by the GPL.
Right.
And when I say limited, you're both practically limited. Is if you did do something crazy, people would see it on GitHub and I could read it on Hacker News, right?
Yep.
Right.
I mean, that's really where Facebook, they've never been known for charity.
They probably have crazy built in, you don't even know about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there are so many layers to this conversation too, because there's an economic impact that you touched on briefly, and that I can tell you from conversations that I've had with a couple of executives at some businesses that there are low-level information workers who are sooner rather than later going to be out of jobs because of these bots. And,
oh, absolutely.
I try not to make judgments on whether or not that's right or wrong because that's just how you can't stop the technology from progressing. But when you add in the speech to text and text to speech aspect of it, there's a lot of call centers,
Sure.
you know, where
Wow.
things are going to work their way in. There are a lot of
Yeah, boy, it doesn't offset it, but there will also be new jobs created by people who are creating these bots. Because you think about this,
that's
there's
a lie, though. That's a lie.
not going to be nearly as big, is it?
Yeah, that's the manufacturing
For
line,
apps.
right? All the old factory guys will move up and be foremans. Yeah.
No, I suppose so. But I think there will be probably for a while a bot rush.
yeah.
Well, right. It'll be like the app rush, right?
Yeah.
2008 to 2014.
Probably. It seems usually things work that way, but you can't always base future performance on past performance. But I find that to be probably a likely scenario if these bots really work out.
The question is whether or not some of the people who are displaced are going to gain those skills, and that's kind of more of like an unfiltered topic. But
Yeah.
but it is. I guess it does fall into the business of programming. You know,
well, the whole thing about. I mean, one thing I've been sort of secretly working on is a low-level customer service bot, right? To like say, hey, your build went out. Oh, you didn't sign up your iOS device on Hockey app. Please don't call me about this. Go, follow this link. Much nicer than that, but in terms of the actual copy. But one thing I do think about is, a lot of shops like mine employ entire departments of just like low-level, let's say, $13, $14 an hour customer service reps to do that very thing. That, frankly, in 2 years, I don't know that job exists.
Right.
And that's a lot of folks. I mean, that's a lot of people.
Yeah, I've had friends get angry at me and vehemently disagree with me when I brought up this topic. Just over a few beers because they just can't see the possibility of some of these jobs being displaced by.
So do you suppose? I mean, I say we stay tuned and find out. That I think both of you may be overselling the total impact, but we'll see. Actually, part of me hopes you're kind of right because I think those revolutions usually tend to do better things down the road. But you did touch on the business just for a second, Ryan. It's been kicking around in the back of my head. On a high level, if this bot revolution takes off and the bots are the future, where does a project like Mycroft fit in on the business end of that? Are you taking care of? Are you guys in it? Or is there a path to some sort of financial stability for a long haul operation?
Yeah, I think there are. I think Mycroft is on a good path, and I think that there are other similar projects and similar businesses that are on a good path to really make out like bandits from this. I think that there's going to be some interesting news. I would tell you to watch my and some of my contacts' social media profiles going forward to see what what might be coming down the pike, but that's a plug for myself, I guess. But I think that there are enormous opportunities in the space that we're talking about right now, like this bot revolution and the things that are going to be possible as a result.
Gosh, there's so much I feel like we could talk about. We could go for another 2 hours or another hour at least, because the thing is like it fundamentally changes the way you think of designing UI, right? That all shifts now when it's conversational based and it's text and based reply or voice. Like, there's so much that's going to change if this takes off, even if it just takes off as an additional interaction paradigm that just becomes super common.
And someone said, I was talking to someone the other day, and they said, right now we're in the same stage as when, for these type of interactions, for the user experience, the UX, for these conversations, as when we were just getting the GUI, and someone was like, oh, we should provide some kind of feedback when things are loading, like an hourglass or something.
Right. Yeah,
like,
wow.
We're in that same stage where people are coming up with those type of fundamental ideas about how this interaction looks.
Yeah, very Xerox Parky. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's a super exciting time for this technology because of that. Like, because people are like, oh, is it is it good for the bot to say, when it's taking a moment to look something up? Like,
Let me think about that.
Things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what's actually a good paradigm? The conversation we have all the time at Mycroft is tone or speech. Like, do we make a tone go off, like ding, or something like that, or do we make it say something? And we are trying to gather data on that. Like, what do people actually prefer? What are people's responses to those type of things? And I think that there's just going to be so much here that we're just at the very edge of right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I love that you brought up the UX side of that, because people are going to be thinking about that and thinking about what these interactions look like, and you've seen this like big UX focus in the Linux community and in the open source community recently that wasn't there for the longest time. I wonder what we're going to see out of the Linux and open source community when it comes to this type of thing, like integrating this technology with, open source desktop or whatever. Like,
right, just build it right in, because why not? It's not like you have to go out and pay some multi-million-dollar license or something to get the Mycroft technology built into a desktop environment or a mobile phone from Canonical or something like that.
Right, and then there's just so much, and like you aptly explained it when you said we could talk about this for 2 hours, because we could talk about this for days. Like, but I really think that especially on this show, people in the audience should feel encouraged to go and check out this technology, because if they're listening to this show and they're looking for opportunities to make money, to have a great career, like that's where to look. And I think that there are. I'll share some resources with you following the show that you can put in the show notes that I think they'll be able to use APIs, and then of course Michael, I'm sure, has some too. And I'd love to just see what the community, the Jupiter Broadcasting community, comes up with. You know?
That will be very interesting. Mr. Dominic, is there anything else we should cover this week?
No, I'd just like to thank Ryan for taking the time, and just ask one favor. When you do add the Terminator Model 3 skill into Mycroft, make sure to throw in an exception for me.
There you go. Yeah, that's nice. That's good. That's good. I would say, Ryan...
I secretly use Arch Linux.
Would you tell us where fans or interested parties or those that want to help or people that are just curious can follow you or maybe Mycroft on Twitter?
Sure. You can follow me at Ryan Lee Sipes, RyanLeeSipes. And you can follow Mycroft at Mycroft_AI.
Very nice.
And you can look there for some exciting news here in the near future.
Okay. That's a bit of a tease right there, right as we're wrapping up. Look at that, pro level. All right, well, we'd love to have you join us live next week. Dear audience, go over to jupiterbroadcasting.com/calendar to find out our broadcast time. It's noon Pacific. You watch it at jblive.tv, you listen to it at jblive.fm, and you subscribe by going to jupiterbroadcasting.com, finding any episode of Coda Radio, and look for the RSS feed right there in the show notes. Also, you can email us. Go to jupiterbroadcasting.com/contact, choose Coda Radio from the dropdown. And last, but absolutely not least, check out the subreddit, codaradio.reddit.com. Input for topics into the show, discussions like around the coding challenges, all that can be had over there at that subreddit. Thanks for joining us on this week's episode of Coda Radio, and we'll see you right back here next week.